What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? And today we want to welcome you to the Resistance. We got a great guest, Resistor Vic. If you haven't followed him on Facebook yet, or not on Facebook, I'm sorry, on TikTok yet, you definitely should. But anyway, Vic, just tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, kind of how you got started doing what you're doing, and anything you want to share.
Well, I got started on accident, really. Long time ago, I made a video and put it on TikTok slamming Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I forgot all about it. And then when Kamala Harris became the nominee, I felt a need, given the situation of everything. It's like, we can't let this orange idiot become our president again, so I had to do whatever I could from way out here in the sticks. So I made a video and it got traction. And I was like, oh, I'll make another video. And next thing you know, here I am.
All right. Well, I did think it was, interesting. You kind of popped up on my radar, and I think somewhat similar vibes. People put us in similar categories, so I started getting tagged in your videos, I think, pretty early on, and liked what you were doing. You say you're out in the sticks. I don't know. It doesn't look like there's a lot of trees in the background when you're out there making your videos.
No, I've got 100 acres and I've got one tree.
Is it a nice tree at least?
It's a nice tree,
right.
But it's like 1,000 feet from the house, dang it.
Well, that's just your marker whenever you take a walk, just walk to the tree and back.
There you go.
There you go.
So you're in western Colorado, correct?
I'm in southern Colorado, next to New Mexico, just east of the interstate.
So down by Durango.
And
Durango's
you were telling
all
us
the way in the west.
You got 108 acres. Do you have livestock? Do you ranch? What do you do with all the land?
I used to have horses, and then in 2008, with the crash in 2008 and a drought, the whole 9 yards, I couldn't afford to keep my horses anymore. So now I'm just a guy out in the country with some land.
I understand that.
I did grow up
horses.
working on ranches and stuff.
Yeah, I have horses, and 3 horses, and I can't imagine how tough it was to go through losing them. That would be their family to me. So
yeah, it was tough.
But then, so in addition to that, your rural background, and you're a veteran as well, correct?
I am 101st.
And what was your experience like in the military?
I was in from 86 to 90. I did a 4-month tour in Honduras, and I was down in Honduras when the wall fell, and that was super cool. And one of my most vivid memories from my military service was when I was in Honduras. We're actually in Guatemala this day. I was a Chinook flight crew. And we're sitting there working on my helicopter filter and hear this snap, wing. It's like, what the heck is that? Snap, wing. What is that? Oh, we look up and there's some guy running at us with a pistol trying to shoot us. And it was like, well, this is weird. I mean, and make no mistake, what that tiny little thing that I had was nothing compared to the men and women who went to Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't begin to compare myself to those kind of veterans. But it was the whole, this guy wants to kill me because I'm in a U.S. military uniform. Mm-hmm. Kind of messes with your head a little bit.
Yeah, I can
we were
imagine.
hauling food and stuff.
And so you were there sort of around the Iran-Contra affair and everything then as well, it sounds like?
Iran-Contra was before that. A little bit before that, when I was in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got another friend of the show, another guest that's been on, who he was in that region during the Iran-Contra affair, and has some interesting stories as well. So
yeah.
But anyway, so I guess I just wanted to set kind of that profile up for you because it's interesting. Obviously, you don't fit the stereotypical demographic of old white rural Army veterans, who are involved in trying to make sure that progressive or at least more moderate politics gets pushed forward. So how did you go from being what would normally be considered the quintessential conservative to being somebody who got involved on social media on the kids dancing app to try to help get Kamala Harris elected and help push Democratic candidates across the finish line?
Yeah. Well, I get that I look like a conservative,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody takes one look at me and assumes I'm a conservative. And that was kind of why from my very first video, I said I'm a 56-year-old rural gun owning white guy. Because as soon as I said that, everybody was going to assume that I'm a conservative. And I wanted other people out in the country to know that you don't have to fit that stereotype, because the country people that I grew up with, they don't care if you're trans or gay. They don't care if you um, have an abortion. They don't care about all of that crap. And I hope I'm not saying that in an offensive way,
No,
but
no.
they care about whether or not they're going to be able to put gas in their truck. They care
Mm-hmm.
about whether or not they're going to be able to pay their uh, homeowners insurance, or their kids going to be able to go to school, things like that. That's what they care about. And the right wing has done just a phenomenal job of dividing us. And um, I thought, well, maybe if I do this, I can reach a couple. I only thought I might reach one or two people.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured if I did that, then I'd done something.
Absolutely. Well, you're obviously reaching a lot more, and you're staying pretty involved in it. It seems, even though we sort of lost the most recent battle there with the presidential election, lost the House, lost the Senate. And you've been now focusing on some House races and bringing awareness to them that aren't even in Colorado. You're now focusing on the races in Florida. And I know you want
Yeah,
to talk a little bit about that. So what have you been doing
I'm
to
doing
work on
everything
that?
I can. I'm doing everything I can to help uh, the Florida races and then the New York race, because for me, losing the election was, Kamala Harris losing the election was just a huge, almost a shock. Not
Mm-hmm.
because I like Kamala Harris. I
Mm-hmm.
think she had good plans. I think she was a good candidate. She was solid. It's not like I thought she was the next FDR or anything like
Yeah.
that. But I recognize the danger that Donald Trump is to our democracy. So after the election, it's like I have to keep going, because we have to do anything we can to oppose what he's bringing. And the biggest battle, the first really big battle in stopping what he's trying to do, is these special elections. Because if we win these House races, uh, that brings his agenda to a halt. There will finally be somebody in Congress that's willing to stand up and say, no, we are a separate and co-equal branch of government.
It is
Right now, the Republicans are like, nope.
it is absolutely insane to me looking at so I just want to for the audience and for everybody listening, we're talking about the April 1st races in Florida specifically are the two coming up most quickly. There's two special elections thanks to Trump picking people from Florida to be part of his cabinet. They have to have special elections to fill these U.S. House representative seats. That is Florida's first, and is it
Nope.
Florida's 6th district? I think it is. Josh
First and
Wheel.
sixth.
Yep, Josh Wheel and Gabe Alamont are running for these, and if we can help get them across the line, that would flip the control. Well, that would tie up the control of the House, and then there's a special election in New York, which is they don't have a date set for that one yet, do they?
No.
But if we can flip that one as well, then that puts control of the House back into Democratic hands by one vote, which would give them at least a little bit more power. And it's just crazy to me that the House of Representatives, and kind of the way that the U.S. government is designed, is that you have these separate but equal powers, branches of power. and they're supposed to fight for their own power, regardless of whether the executive branch and the legislative branch are of the same party. We have a long history of the executive branch trying to overstep its boundaries and the legislative branch, because they selfishly want to make sure that they maintain their power, going against a president or the executive branch, even though it's their own party, going against their agenda if it's overstepping their power, because of course they should want to maintain their power. And the fact that the president currently, Trump, is just running roughshod all over the legislative branch's power, and Republicans are just stepping aside and allowing it to happen and allowing this consolidation of power is absolutely insane to me. So
Well, and it's
Am I the
100%,
only one that's constantly wondering how that can be?
no,
right?
every day I wake up and I'm like, what the hell is happening?
Oh,
What were you saying, Taylor?
it's completely unprecedented in a body. Even when Biden and Obama had full control of the House and Senate, you know, those people weren't just gonna like agree to whatever either president or said and wanted to do. They would still weigh, what do I think is best for the American people, and like they didn't just always vote 100% on party lines. Um, I mean, you're seeing a tiny bit of that with Mitch McConnell somehow being one of the few Republicans to not vote for every single cabinet position to confirm, but it's still that it's basically a dereliction of duty. Essentially, these people are passing along the buck that they were elected to, that post they were elected to run. They're just giving away all that power to Donald Trump instead of being responsible for it themselves.
Yeah, it's just sometimes I think maybe it's Putin has been at his game for so long. I have to wonder if he hasn't just been collecting information on all these guys for so long. And maybe that's a plausible explanation. I don't know, but it just baffles me every day that these guys are so easily giving up their duties, their responsibilities, their power.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think the KGB or Putin really does have that much power over these people. I think it's easier than that. They found the useful idiot to have people coalesce around, and now they're happy to have another authoritarian style leader in running the country.
well, I do
You're
think
probably right.
that I mean, compromat or whatever the Russians call this, finding dirt and compromising information on people you want to manipulate, is something that the Russians have done incredibly well for an incredibly long time. Russians almost, I would say, out intelligence to us through the majority of the Cold War, and
Am I the
certainly
only
in
one here?
recent years. And I think that it's not necessarily that they have it on all of these members of Congress. I think a lot of it has to do with they
Oh,
found
come
enough
back.
compromising information and infiltrated enough organizations that had enough
Fine.
reach, where it wasn't that you needed a lot of people, you just needed the right people, and they have the right people now. You've got, clearly they've got a lot on Donald Trump. There's no question about that. Donald Trump is a Russian asset. There's just too many ties to ignore that. Financial, possibly, the PP tape incrimination, that sort of stuff. And then you have, their infiltration of the NRA, and obviously the NRA has its fingers in every aspect of the Republican Party. And it's finding just the right number of people, and then using those people to put pressure on other people that they either don't want in the party anymore because they will go out of their way to hold them accountable, like we've seen with Liz Cheney, like we saw with the kind of pressure they were putting on John McCain before he passed away. And you push those people out of the party, and you bring in people who may not necessarily have. There's probably no dirt on Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert. They're just really fucking stupid people, and they're really easy to buy in. And you get the people who've drank the Kool-Aid to then come in and are happy to just give up the power of a legislative branch they've got no understanding of how it works to their supreme deity. And I think it's orchestrated, but I don't think it's as widespread. I think it's a very targeted operation that has allowed Russia to control uh, a limited number of very influential people and get us to this point, and then they just back all of that up with a lot of disinformation. I mean, they've flooded our country with propaganda to a level I don't think has ever been seen before. And now you've got people literally out here with Ukraine being invaded by Russia, spewing Russian propaganda and Russian rhetoric, um, giving Russia a full pass on something and condemning our allies as Americans, which is just mind blowing to me. I mean, that's treason at this point.
One of the worst side effects of this new Trump presidency, I mean, of all the other horrible things going on, what we saw last Friday, I just call it the atrocity.
Mm-hmm.
What we saw there is easily one of the absolute worst parts of this new administration.
I think that's a turning point. That will be a date that future kids are going to have to remember on history tests. You know, that is a day that will live in infamy. That is the shot heard around the world. That is the moment that global powers shifted, that America stepped down as the leader of the free world, that our allies have started realigning themselves to think about a world coalition without the United States in it. It is, if we end up in World War III, and I hope we don't, but I feel closer and closer to it every day, that is the moment that put us on that path where it was irreversible if we do get to that point, and it's horrifying.
My video on November 6th, the morning after I woke up, to confirm that, yeah, he won. And that was exactly what I talked about. Was one of my greatest fears was not only is he going to allow Putin to march through Ukraine, but that it's not going to stop there. And my biggest fear was that we would be on the wrong side of that war with Europe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It is incredibly scary to think about if we do go to war. And this is again things where Congress would normally be in a position to pull the rug out from under a president pulling this kind of bullshit, right? Like him stopping aid going to Ukraine is not something the president theoretically has the power to do. Like that's money that's already been appropriated by Congress. That's aid that's already been appropriated by Congress. The president has no ability to put the brakes on that if Congress was doing its job and maintaining its power. The president can't invade countries. The president can't violate, NATO contracts or pull us out of NATO without congressional approval. And he doesn't have it. But Congress is not standing up to him to put the brakes on this, and it's insane to me.
No,
$1 million. Go ahead.
yeah, it's the only small bright spot in all this is that the judicial branch is actually attempting to be at least put in place kind of the stopping measures that Congress is refusing to basically do in stopping them from firing people just based off of whatever they're stopping, or they're saying you should continue to give aid where it is approved by Congress. Terrence, Chief Justice Terrence, or not Chief Justice, but Justice Thomas is all pissed off about some of that stuff. But like the courts are doing a halfway decent job for what I would expect is a generally right-leaning court system as we have it today. But like, it's not enough, certainly. But like, there's still like a modicum of power that the judicial branch is hanging on to.
And the judicial, I mean, they're walking through judge orders like Earl walked through the restraining order. It's like the administration gives zero fucks about what the courts are saying right now. When you got the vice president coming out and saying that the courts can basically go fuck themselves, we don't have any obligation to listen to them. It's insane.
Right. Well, and
$1 million question is whether or not there will be enough Americans who start to recognize it and start to see the danger. Will there be enough Americans to say, I mean, I was having a conversation with a coworker today who was a Trump voter, and I'm trying to say, look, we've never seen anything like this, not from a Republican president, not from a Democratic president. We've never seen anything like this. And he insists, oh, yeah, it's been on the other side. It's been on the Democrat side, too. The cognitive dissonance that continues in the face of all this evidence, that's what really makes me struggle.
Yeah. It's insane, and it's insane seeing now people, that I know, and some I even care about, that are continuing to just justify it is treason. I'm sorry, there's no other word for what is happening right now with the Republican Party, especially in regards to Ukraine and abandoning our allies, breaking our alliances, our treaties that we've signed to defend Ukraine, to acknowledge their sovereignty. It's nothing short of treason. You're supporting and aiding our enemies, our adversaries, and that's treason, right? I mean, that's you took an oath I didn't take,
No other way
but
to look at it.
yeah. So I guess I don't understand how people can continue to see this, and they can continue to see the Elon Musk bullshit with Doge running through our government and firing people and uh, deciding that we're just going to cancel Social Security payments and veterans benefits and all of these kinds of things. And they're like, yeah, and they're sitting here cheering it on, and I'm like, how? Where is that line? Where does the buck stop and people start realizing? And I think the tariffs, obviously those go on today, which is again another thing that the president can't do. It's in violation of NAFTA. This is a treaty we have with countries. Like, you can't just unilaterally throw tariffs on a country we've got free trade agreements with. But Congress is once again doing nothing to stop it. But that is going to drive inflation through the roof. The stock market is tanking. As much as I don't want, veterans to lose their benefits and old people to lose their benefits and disabled people to lose their benefits, a lot of these people are the people who voted this way, and maybe that's what it takes, is them, it hurting their own personal paychecks. We're seeing it now some with farmers, and them kind of starting to regret their votes. I'm seeing more and more veterans and active service members speaking up and saying, I didn't realize that he was going to take these stances on Gaza and Ukraine, which is just insane to me. He's been very open about these stances before, but they're saying that, and I'm hoping that turning point is starting to come, and we get people angry enough, fast enough, to put enough pressure on the government to do something before we don't have a system left to save.
One of the great struggles for me as we go through all of this is you had Will Westmoreland on your show, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and he has helped me moderate, chill out, whatever you want to call it, because on one hand, in 1 minute, I'm like, FAFO, buddy. And on the other hand, I'm like, we need these people. We need them when they realize we need them to join us to fight back. But at the same time, it is so hard sometimes.
It is.
It's a struggle.
I do think that there's a balance. You can't coddle them to the point where they never feel like they have any obligation to come back. I mean, they need to feel some shame. They need to feel some pain, some consequences, and I think that pain and consequence, because without that, they're not going to learn. If it doesn't affect them, we've seen that they have no sense of empathy. If it doesn't affect them personally or somebody they very much care about, if it's trans people and brown people and everybody else that they voted to fuck over is getting fucked over, they're happy. It's until they can't afford groceries, they can't afford the rent, they're losing their benefits, is the time that they're going to come around. And that's sort of the FAFO part that I think needs to happen. And in a way, I'm almost happy it's happening sooner rather than later, because the boiling pot, the frog in the boiling pot, if they slowly dismantled these things over 4 years, where they didn't have that kind of shock to the system of, oh shit, now I suddenly can't afford anything anymore, and my retirement's gone because the stock market crashed, and my VA, my Social Security benefits are gone, then maybe they wouldn't have that realization before it was too late. But I'm really hoping that the find out happens fast enough that they do have that realization, and then we can be like, all right, you were an idiot, but we can welcome you back into the fold to fight fascism for the moment anyway.
Time will tell.
Well, I mean, it's not like it just kind of occurred to me, like, if they want to fight against fascism, like, it's not like we are the arbiters of who gets to decide, like, something like that. So, like, it's not so much as, like, I think welcoming them with open arms, as much as just not, like, calling them out for, like, I don't know. Like, I think I was just thinking about this the other day. Is like the people who voted to elect Hitler the first time, like, and maybe before he went and just like actually took over the entire country and was became dictator, like probably not all of them wanted or even knew what was going to happen, and so, like, are they like absolutely horrendous people, or were they just in that country at the time, and there were people in America who would have voted for Hitler at the time too? So, like, as long as if they're fighting against what Trump is going to end up be doing, like, I don't know, there's nothing we can do but like have them help us, I guess.
I think it's more of a matter of being willing to stand alongside them. We don't have to hug them and go dancing with them. We have to be willing to stand alongside them and work together with them without hating each other.
Sure, yeah. I mean, if if you're marching next to somebody, I think that's like that's pretty good start, right?
At the end of the day, we're all going to find out that we have a hell of a lot more in common than we have separating us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, and that's true. Obviously, we talk about this a lot. It's never been a left versus right. It's an up versus down issue. It's just the problem is a lot of the people in the left versus right aspect simp for the up people rather than the down people, and it's hard to fight a common enemy when half the people should be on your side because they are physically on your side. They're in the they're the peasants among us as well. Are doing the work and being the lapdogs for our oppressors, and this is I don't know.
That's
It's
where
a
we
weird.
all come in.
Mm-hmm. So
Well,
that's what we're
and
saying.
that
But that okay.
I guess just kind of like I guess a little bit of potentially moving to a slightly different topic, but mostly on the same topic is at the end of one of your videos, you talk about how the two parties are not the same, which obviously I would generally agree. And one is trying to discriminate against poor people while propping up rich people. And you say the other one is the opposition, Democratic Party. And you obviously mentioned that like third parties and the Green Party or whatever and independents, they have no chance of winning within our electoral college, and there's no way that they can actually affect change in the way that they currently exist. So
Right.
there is no other choice but to, if you're against fascism and for authoritarianism, then you should be voting for Democrats. And I absolutely agree with that. But
You just said for authoritarianism.
against, well, if you're for, right, for,
For democracy.
right, I guess I feel like, is that enough? I mean, obviously, it's what we have to do now, but considering the results of this last election, which I will say are not a landslide, obviously, if a few special elections in two states are enough to at least equalize the Congress, then I don't think it's by any means a huge landslide. But
It's not the mandate. It was a mandate. Didn't you hear it was a mandate? They mandated it. It's a mandate.
I just think that
Couldn't even win
our
50% of the vote, but it's a
If it was on
mandate.
Fox News, it must be true.
right, exactly. I just feel like if all that we're saying in this point in time is that we need to oppose fascism and authoritarianism, then I feel like we're still using the 2024 formula, and we're not
Agreed.
actually talking about what caused 2024 election of Donald Trump to occur, which I think is the just fundamental lack of economic policy provided by Democrats that actually address the problems that Americans have been facing for decades.
And that's why I'm pushing so hard to get people active at the local level and drag the Democratic Party out of the claws of Wall Street. Make it a people's party like it used to be.
Absolutely. And I think so. I kind of wanted to circle back because we were talking about the elections in Florida, and you are working. What is some of the stuff that you're doing? Not that U.S. that's not local to you, and House races aren't entirely local since they're still a federal seat. But what are you doing to to help with those? Obviously, you're in Colorado, so if you can be doing something to help, a lot of other people can be doing something to help. And what steps have you been taking?
Well, here's what I'm doing. One, um, it- we talked earlier about how I got in this whole social media thing. I never expected to make any money from it.
Hmm.
Uh, a lot of the money that I do make is going to Florida right now because you guys, the people watching my videos, have given me that ability. So I send a lot of that money to them. Um, I am working with my local Democratic Party, and thank you for reminding me that I'm behind on this task. I want to organize a phone bank through my local Democrats, get them together for a night of phone banking to help that. I promote the National Ground Game every chance that I get. I've got the link to National Ground Game in my link tree. I share all of her videos on all the platforms that I can. I do everything I can to increase their social media presence and encourage people to donate to those races because I've got some friends in the political world who don't believe that those are winnable races because of the 30% victory margin, or margin of
Hmm.
victory, excuse me. But my thinking is that's exactly how we got to where we are,
Yep.
is by assuming we're going to lose the races. So screw that. Fight as hard as you can. And if you fight hard enough, you just might win. But if we barely lose that, then you're going to see a bunch of Republican congressmen saying, oh shit,
Hmm. Well, and
these guys almost beat us in Matt Gaetz' district.
you know, and I think that that's an excellent point, and been one of, I think, our biggest frustrations with the Democratic Party as a whole, and one of my biggest frustrations as a rural voter is the Democrats have when people in rural America, talk about the coastal elites and the liberal elites and shit like that, like it's a trope and it's a cliche, but there's a kernel of truth behind that. Is Democrats don't spend
Really
any
big kernel.
time, a huge kernel. It's a whole popcorn bowl of truth. Honestly, if we're really doing some self reflection, they spend no time on rural America. They spend no time on races they don't think they can win, and it's something where, yeah, these people, the people in our communities, obviously we know because we have IQ slightly higher than the temperature of ice cream and can cognitive have a little bit of a cognitive thinking, just the ability to see that, well, they're not personally campaigning to us. Their policies are still going to be less harmful to us than Republicans, and in some cases more beneficial to us than Republicans. And that's why we fight this fight. But then I'm sure you felt it going through this election cycle. Is we sit here and we pound the pavement for them, and then they throw us under the bus, even with their own talk, their own rhetoric. For me, one of the biggest frustrations was obviously Gaza. It's like a little bit of lip service for Gaza would have went a long ways in this past election, and they just couldn't bring themselves to do
Absolutely.
it. It's like, oh, I'm not asking for real policy. I'm not asking for anything. I'm asking for you to just come out and say, not start with Israel has the right to defend itself bullshit, and just be like, what's going on here is unacceptable, and we need to work towards peace and prosperity for the Palestinian people, because they do not deserve this type of insecurity, and that's
Well,
all they needed to say. Like, it didn't.
or just
Yeah,
let the Palestinian people at the DNC talk too for like a couple minutes, while they were there
Yep.
waiting. You don't have to endorse what they're saying, but just give
hmm
them a voice.
You got some guy in Washington, D.C. with a pocket protector looking at a bunch of data saying that the odds are if we ignore the Palestinians and we keep propping up Israel, then we might lose a little bit of votes, but the odds are we'll do better. So let's, it's 20, 30 years of those pocket protector guys in Washington, D.C. telling the campaigns how to run and what to do instead of the Democrats coming out here and actually hearing people.
I mean, I don't know if I could say pocket protectors. I'd say millionaires and billionaires on the left who, or I wouldn't say the left really, more independent, moderate Democrats who just want their interests to be maintained.
No, and obviously APAC money
That's fair.
has a lot to do with it. You have a huge lobbying organization that represents a foreign country that owns both parties and spends a lot of money making sure that people in primaries win primaries who have their interests above anybody else's. And we
I've been
have a
wanting to
lot.
do a video for like months on them guys.
Yeah, you absolutely should. There's a lot I've done. I did some like 2 years ago, uh back before we really got into like full election swing. But there's uh it's that kind of stuff. It's the kind of things like when we're talking about uh Democrat economic policy and they don't come out and actually even promote their own policy wins and their own policy aspirations and goals. It's like it's out there, but they're not out here touting it. And then you've got Republicans who are out here saying that they're ruining the economy, and they don't even do anything to counter that. And then we're out here trying to counter that type of rhetoric for them and trying to tell them that this is what you need to do to appeal to rural voters, because as you said, rural voters don't give a shit about LGBTQ rights one way or the other. It's like not something that affects them, and they're worried about what's affecting them personally. And whether you agree with that or
I,
not, that's what you need to do to win their votes.
I got a great example for you.
Mhm.
Back in 2014, when I ran against Ken Buck, I was in a very deep, dark red part of eastern Colorado. I'm sitting at this truck stop and talking to a bunch of the locals who were sitting there talking about basketball. I'm like, can I join you? Introduce myself. I'm running for Congress, et cetera, et cetera. And that was the last place in all of Colorado that I expected somebody at that table to say, I sure am glad for the Affordable Care Act.
Mm-hmm.
I was blown away. Meantime, we've got Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer saying, don't run on the national or on the Affordable Care Act, run away from it, ignore it, pretend
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't exist, instead of being proud and fighting for the accomplishments they made.
Right, which is insane because like it is extremely popular, and well, at least the parts of it that are actually like
Still working.
good for consumers, and not just another way for insurance companies to make more money off of us. But like it's also like not like it's Obamacare, ACA, right? But like it's
Mm-hmm.
basically Romney Care, so it's basically like it should be fairly middle of the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it
But
was it was a, it
Dems
was a
don't know how to
Republican
fight for
plan.
their own stuff.
No, they don't. But then so kind of getting back to you fighting obviously for the races in Florida, and then getting people involved in local politics. You have a new project too, super secret project you've been working on. You were maybe telling me about.
Well, you, we kind of talked about, well, we haven't exactly talked about it, but the Republicans have been dominating social media forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the guy at work thinks that the Democrats have had just as crazy a president as Trump is, because that bubble that they live in.
Mm-hmm.
So I am working with some other creators. I don't know exactly if I can say their names yet. One is a veteran fighting fascism. One has some very rich content. One is a young weightlifter. One of them is a white dude in New York who helped start White Dudes for Harris. Who am I missing? And one is a very talented creator that uses a lot of data. And 2 days from now, we're going to let the cat out of the bag about the podcast we're starting. And the idea is to start countering to be a piece of the left countering the Joe Rogans and the Alex Jones and what you're doing. We want to do that too. We need more and more left leaning, smart, reaching regular people podcasts and social media ventures out there to reach people. So that's what we're trying to do.
There is a bit of a void that
I
that YouTube cannot fill, it seems, or doesn't want to fill. I don't
yeah.
know.
I do. I mean, it's very clear, especially in this last election, that the left has lost the social media battle, and lost it by a lot. And I think that just folds into the bigger arc that the left always loses the messaging battle. Like the left cannot brand itself, the left cannot message, and the Democrats poured tons and tons and tons of money into social media outreach for this election, but it's too little, too late, and too much in the wrong spots. Where the Republican machine funds podcasts and content creators year round, and they have a structure where you have smaller creators and ways that they can move up. I mean, that's basically what Daily Wire and Turning Point USA is designed to do, is bring these smaller creators in and give them an opportunity to build a platform, give them the resources they need to build a platform, and then elevate them until they become, eventually Fox News hosts, it seems like, or Breitbart hosts or something. And the left has nothing like that. It's us out here volunteering our time, doing it for free with no resources, just hoping because we feel like it's the right thing to do that somebody will pay attention to us. And it's like, God, if we could just get a little bit of resources out here, we could do so much more with that. And I
Well,
think
the good news is,
oh yeah, go ahead.
if we're correct, some of the people we're talking to, there may be resources out there for us on the left to start doing it. It sounds like there's a lot of interest from people who are agreeing with everything we're saying right here about the need for the left to do what the right has done. It sounds like there's a lot of interest in starting to fund that kind of thing.
Well,
I mean, we need it.
Well, hopefully. I mean, we'll see. It seems like it like was maybe a thing that people were talking about around the election, because that was like a major talking point around that time, was how Democrats failed to capture social media. But I haven't really heard any follow up on that from any elected official or anybody part of the DNC, or haven't heard much from them regardless. But with your podcast, do you guys have a name for it or anything like that? Or you guys, tell us more?
Let's see, am I allowed to say that?
Well,
Because in 2
Remember,
days
the
we're
only
gonna,
people who are gonna know are the people in the live, because this will air after your podcast goes live. If it's going live in 2 days.
Yep.
it's going to be the Find Out podcast.
All
Okay.
right. I like it.
Looking forward.
Yeah.
And so are all of you going to be on it every week then? Is that the plan, or is it just going to be an alternating lineup?
It's going to be, we're kind of going to feel it out at first, because with 6 guys on one podcast, it's going to be kind of hard to manage, right? So our first episode, we're going to do over several hours and introduce all of us and have a little bit of back and forth. And maybe we'll all be on at once at some point, and we'll edit and do all that stuff. And I don't know. I mean, I am not the technologically savvy guy that can answer all those questions.
Yeah, well, with 6 guys, I mean, it's nice to have that many people involved with content creation, because I know with Jordan and I, we often struggle to maintain enough happiness or motivation. Motivation is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
We find it difficult between the two of us to find the motivation to just constantly create things. I'm sure with 6 people, you'll each have some weeks where you're feeling really happy and you can make some stuff, and other weeks where you've got a puppy that really wants to go outside or something.
Yeah. Yeah, she doesn't know what she wants. And we're 6 very different people too. We're from San Francisco to New York to, I'm here in Colorado. There's Iowa. The age differences, Luke is 21. I'm 57.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the oldest. Luke's the youngest. So we have a very, I hate to say diverse, because we're all a bunch of white guys, right? But age-wise, we're very diverse. Our backgrounds are very diverse. Tim worked in the Obama administration in the Interior Department. Chris is he used to be a lobbyist. He's a veteran, and he's infiltrated all the right-wing groups, and he's done some amazing work fighting fascism. it's just, I think it's a really, really good collection of different viewpoints, and we're going to sit around and talk about our different perspectives on what's wrong, what needs to happen, and hopefully in a relatable way that will draw an audience that can get into what we're saying.
Well, and I think that's about as diverse as podcasts get too. Because if we're being honest, podcasts are really by white guys for white guys. I think that that's why the conservative sphere has done so well with that particular medium. You
Yeah.
know, I don't really know why white guys seem to be so attracted to podcasts. We really like to hear ourselves talk, and then we really like to hear what we have to say about stuff. So I suppose that's it. But no, I think that's good, and I think it really is a niche. I mean, it's part of why we started doing it. I had no interest in ever doing a podcast. People kept asking for it, and I think that that was. I'm glad they did. I'm glad they pushed us. I'm glad that Taylor was willing to jump on and kind of tackle this with me, because I definitely wouldn't be doing without his support either. But doing it, I do think, is filling kind of a niche, and just because, like, you or I may not understand exactly why the niche reaches the people that it does, it definitely does, and I think that it's important that we start focusing more on filling it and just not allowing conservative conspiracy propaganda media to fill and flood that space unanswered and uncontested.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as diversity goes, like we have, Jordan and I, we try our best to have on as many different types of guests as we can. We've had many women on the show. We've had many people of color on the show, and like while your group may not be demographically diverse, I mean, any voice that's going to support people of color and just
Mhm.
any progressive movement, I don't think anybody's ever going to say like, oh, why do we really need another one? It's like, well, if people will listen, then clearly we did. So
No, absolutely. So no, that's awesome. I don't want to beat the podcast thing too much to death, but I'm super excited that you guys are doing that. Do you think you guys are going to have guests on it then too? Is that sort of the plan?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Well then, always feel free to
We're already
hit
making
me
our
up.
wish list of who we want to get.
So I would certainly be happy, and if you ever have anybody that you're trying to get in touch with and you can't get in touch with them, definitely let me know as well, because I might have be mutuals or something. The content creator community gets really small the more people you know, and it's kind of nice to be able to bounce stuff off of people.
Yeah.
But anyway, what
Did I tell
is?
you about the?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you
You
go
just
ahead.
mentioned the content creator community. Did I tell you about what I'm trying to do here in Colorado?
You were mentioning something about that too, and yeah, I'd love to hear. I honestly thought when I brought up your super secret project, that was kind of the thing that you were talking about, not
Ah,
a podcast. So,
okay. Well, no, the content creator, we haven't decided on a name yet. As a matter of fact, as soon as I get off of this call with you guys, I got to get on a meeting with them. We've got around 20 creators just in Colorado so far, and we're going to come up like our first mission was to our yesterday and today, and well, presumably until we find out the results of our effort. But there's a bill in the Colorado legislature that every Democrat in America should be 100% behind. Right? In Colorado, if you have a bunch of workers that want to form a union, well, you do the federal labor law thing, you organize, you have an election, right?
mm-hmm.
But in Colorado, you have to have a second election, and the threshold is 75%.
Holy
And this
shit.
comes all the way back to 1943. It's based in racism and anti-union, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, there's no excuse for this law to still be on the books. So Senate Bill 5 in our Colorado legislature right now, it's passed the Senate. It's going to be voted on in the House next week, and our Democratic governor is threatening to veto it,
Why?
which is just freaking. Polis is a sellout. He's always been a sellout. He's gone against the unions many times in the past. And it's funny because I know that he wants to be the next U.S. senator because he's turned out. But our collective is working hard to create content. We all make our videos in our own style, and we push people to educate them about this bill. And we provide the phone numbers to call the legislature and to call the governor's office and put pressure on them to make sure that this gets passed and signed. And then we share each other's content. We're across multiple platforms, Twitter, YouTube. Well, not so much Twitter, it's kind of useless. YouTube, TikTok, Substack, Blue Sky, Instagram. We're on all of those.
Yeah.
And we push each other's content, and we're hoping to see it, provide a model so that if it works, if we can prove that we're influencing the political discourse here in Colorado, then we'll be like, here, Nebraska, this is how we did it. Here, New York, whatever. This is how we did it. This was our process.
Well, and I appreciate the kind of approach that you've been taking with a lot of this stuff, because I do think that this is a lot of people are really frustrated because, especially in today's world, we all feel so small, so insignificant, and so powerless to do anything. Like, even those of us with a platform, when we poured our heart and soul into trying to affect the outcome of the election and kind of affect the outcome of policy and stuff like that, and it seems like no matter how hard we work, nothing happens and nothing changes, and things continue to get worse. And I know a lot of people, even in the comments that we have kind of going on the live here right now, people are asking, what can we do? How can we help? What difference can we make? And I think that you are really kind of putting the solutions that are attainable and probably the most actionable and the most effective. You're trying those out on your local level. Local politics is huge. Educating people about local policy and making sure that they're getting out to local races, even if it's not in your state, is a big thing. And I'm kind of wondering if you've got some more advice for people on things that they can do if they don't have a platform, if they're not a creator. How can your average person who is feeling really disillusioned right now get involved?
That's a great question. And one of the first things I tell people is, one, show up. I mean, if some people, there's no way I'm ever going to get them to show up to my local Democratic Party meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you know what you can do? If you can't go that far, show up to your city council meeting, show up to a school board meeting, show up to the county commissioners meeting, show up and just be there. The more people just show up, you don't have to get up in the 3-minute thing and say, this is what I want my city council to do. Just showing up and letting them know that people are paying attention, that they're there, they're seeing, they're hearing, and that they vote. That is the smallest, easiest thing to do. And from there, you get educated. I mean, I've had some people in my comments who have followed that advice, who have gone to some meetings, and they're like, this isn't so bad, and maybe I will get involved in the party. Maybe I'll run for office someday. It just begins with being involved and not keeping yourself powerless, because that's what you do when you say, I'm small and insignificant and I can't do anything. You're making yourself powerless. I can't remember her name. One of my favorite TikTokers. She says every day at the end of her video, your voice is your power if you use it. And there's nothing more true. Show up. Don't let anybody tell you that you don't count.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that getting educated by showing up is one of the big things too. Like you learn a lot by going to those meetings. And unfortunately, a lot of times they are boring. Although in our modern world, they've gotten a lot less boring, even on the local levels, for better or worse. But yeah. I still want to ask, I guess, if you've got any more advice or pointers for people, just because a lot of people, I think, find it hard to find the motivation to, after working all week and struggling to pay the bills and then having to go to a 7 o'clock meeting at the town hall, or or whatever
Right.
it is. Even learning like when it's going to be, and it's a daunting task, I think, for a lot of people. And I think it gets really frustrating for a lot of people who are trying to be activists or involved in activism, when it's like the more you do, the less significant or the less difficult something that small seems. But when you've never been involved in anything at all and you're trying to get involved, it's often a huge obstacle and uh, a big thing to get yourself to do a lot of the time. And I think that's why you see such little involvement in it. And I don't know if you have any advice for people. Obviously, you've ran for office. You've kind of been a little bit more involved in these rural communities and smaller communities and getting people to turn out and be involved. How do you get people over that obstacle? How do you help people take a step that might seem huge to them and seem so tiny to a lot of the people who are always telling them, go to you hear it all the time, go to your school board meeting, go to your city council meeting. Like, we've
Right.
all heard this a million times, but like, why should they listen to it, or what's the step before that to do that?
The big why. Why should I show up? My biggest motivator is the alternative. It's if we don't do something, if we just sit back and let it happen to us, what does that mean for the future? What does that mean for my 6 grandkids? If I were younger, I would be saying, when I got on the school board, when I ran for the school board and got on the school board here, it wasn't about me wanting to say, look, I won an election. It was about me wanting to make the schools better for my kids. The motivation is always, what if I don't?
Yeah.
And wanting to make sure that I am fulfilling my responsibility to my kids and to my grandkids, to future generations. Because frankly, my generation, I'm sorry, but pardon my French. No, people hate it when you say it like that. Pardon my language, but my generation fucked your generation.
Mm.
And part of my motivation is also trying to make up for that. I mean, I've always been politically active. I registered to vote the day that I turned 18, and I've always been involved. But my generation failed your generation. There is no debate there, because if it hadn't, we wouldn't be where we are today. So part of it's making up for that, and part of it is making sure that my kids and grandkids have a better future than what we currently are leaving them. And if that doesn't motivate somebody, I mean, I don't know what will.
No, no, it's
Plus,
a good
plus
point,
you're
and I
not going to
do.
be
Oh, go ahead.
you don't want to be one of those people who watch people or watch other people get taken out, other groups of people being prosecuted and discriminated against, and by the time they finally get to us white guys, and they're
Then
coming
they came for
for
me.
right, exactly, don't want to be one of
Yeah,
those and then they came for me kind of guys.
that's the video I had in my head all day today. I want to tell people who are big Second Amendment enthusiasts, it's like, dude, they're coming for your guns too, buddy.
Hmm. Oh my! I mean, Pam Bonnie's
I
already
mean,
talking about laying the groundwork for it, and they're, Donald Trump, and I always thought it was funny that the big pro gun people are Republican, and it's like all the most significant anti-gun legislation in the past, in all of history, basically has been done by conservatives. With the exception of the NFA, I'd feel like under FDR, pretty much all other gun legislation, gun control restrictions, has been under Republicans. You look at all that Reagan did to limit gun rights, both as governor of California and as president, which I always think is funny. They talk shit about how California has all these strict gun laws, and it's like, who the hell passed it? It wasn't the Democrats. Uh,
the
but
first
yeah.
magazine limit in the country was put in place because of the NRA.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's as soon as you just give black, brown, or gay people guns, and now suddenly Republicans love gun control. It's all if Democrats really wanted to get gun control passed, they would just start arming every brown person and trans person out there, and then suddenly they'd be like, you know what? Maybe this gun thing, we need to rethink the Second Amendment.
Definitely.
Um,
They're
but
so
yeah.
easy.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I saw an Onion article, I think it was, or maybe it was just a meme, but it's a posed like an article, and it's like the NRA embarrassingly forgot to rise up against tyranny.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
I can remember the
Classic.
day that I gave up my NRA membership. Remember the exact day. Clinton was in office, and I'm filling out my check for the NRA to renew my membership, and it was during the campaign and when he was trying to pass the Budget Deficit Reduction Act, and they said that in the flyer, all the propaganda that came with my renewal notice, how the Inflation Reduction Act was going to, or not the Budget
Mm-hmm.
Deficit Reduction Act. Sorry, they said that was going to take away gun rights. And well, I'd read the whole thing. I made notes. I'd done all kinds of work analyzing that, and I knew it was a lie. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the day I said, you know what? Why am I going to give these people my money and pay them to lie to me?
You know,
So
yeah,
I
I
don't
got
know.
a similar phone
Sounds like
call. Oh.
you already put way more thought into it than the regular NRA member. Just saying.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. All you got to do is just tell them the Democrats are coming for your guns, and they'll believe it, whether it's true or not.
No,
You
no,
know,
no.
then conveniently ignore when Trump bans bump stocks by executive order, which was arguably the biggest overreach of executive authority in gun legislation in history. You know, it didn't go through Congress. It was just then
but
he
he did it so that Congress wouldn't have to do it.
yeah. Oh, and then he comes back out and says, you know, for taking the guns first, to due process later, and has been a big proponent of red
Yeah, and
flag
that just
laws.
right over everybody's head.
I just,
So
yeah, no,
Always does.
it's insane to me. But there's no
and
level of ideals that Republicans won't abandon if they're told to by their leader. So, and then they turn around and call you a sheep for not agreeing with them.
oh yeah. And that's what makes it hard to not FAFO these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it really is. And so I think I think we need just a little bit of that find out, as I said before, and then I think we need to be willing to work with them as they find out, but we need to let them find out enough where it's painful enough, where they learn their lesson and are willing to do the work to help us right these wrongs that they unfortunately forced us into.
Right. I'm sure.
I'd say 90% of them.
I'm-
There's a certain segment of them that they will never. I never go to the grocery store on Sunday if I can help it, because the local Republican Party, they camp out on the overpass out here and wave their Morrison flag and their Betsy Ross flag. And the day of January 6, 2021, I'm coming home from work, and these assholes were all out there waving their flags and celebrating the attack on our Capitol. I almost went to prison that day.
I would have struggled not to as well. I was just wondering what the criminal penalty is for shooting them with a paintball gun as you drive by. Like, I feel like that's probably maybe worth the fine or misdemeanor or
I mean, it's probably still assault. It's probably still assault.
Yeah, it probably would be.
probably would be. But if it's not a
But
felony,
thanks for giving me that idea. If I end up calling for bail, it's going to be you, buddy.
all right, you know what? I'll get you out. I would I think that would be worth it. That'd be money well spent.
As long as you record it, let's get it on video.
Yeah, we need it. We got to
There you go.
We got to get content out of it. You got to record it so we can get some content out of it. Help pay that bail that way.
Okay.
I'll be led away in cuffs. Wagon, this is all your fault.
Please do. I'll appreciate the shout out. You know, as Trump has taught us anything, there's no such thing as bad press. So
Yeah.
And especially if I get the credit for telling you to assault Nazis, I think I'm good with that. I don't think I'm gonna lose too many followers over that. My demographic I think would be okay.
There go your metrics. Way up.
uh, But no, I think we had a bunch of stuff here we haven't really gotten to, and I don't know that you're necessarily. It was just it's the same crap that we talk about. What's going on with the downfall of our country at the moment? But I think really the important stuff to talk about was how somebody who's just getting involved because they decided to get involved, and obviously if a rural guy standing out in the sticks that has no sticks can create a platform and make some waves and hopefully make a little bit of a difference, then hopefully all of us can. And I really appreciate you taking your time to be here with us today, and I want to give you a chance just to let everybody know where to find you on all the socials that you're doing everything. Somebody earlier asked for your Blue Sky link, and I'm like, it's Resistor Vic on all the socials, I'm assuming, but I'll let you tell everybody how to find out what you're doing and where they can find your podcast and all that kind of stuff. So please take it away. Give all your shameless self promotion.
All righty then. Yeah, I am Resistor Vic everywhere. I'm trying to build me a website. I might, maybe, possibly even do merch. I haven't decided yet. But on Substack, I'm Resistor Vic, and I try and publish written work there, but I'm no writer. But TikTok, Resistor Vic, YouTube, Resistor Vic, Blue Sky. I wish I could change my handle to Resistor Vic on Blue Sky, but I'm just Vic Myers, VICMEYERS .bluesky.social. And I had an Instagram account, but that sucks. And I couldn't download anything, so I finally got frustrated, gave it up. And now that we're doing the podcast, I'm like, well, I should probably get back on Instagram if I can, but I can't get my account back. So
now maybe start it from scratch if you can't get it back up and running. Sometimes you can link it to your own personal account too. And yeah, Substack. I just started one of those too, and I'm really struggling to figure out that platform. Obviously, it seems like it's more set up for print style or written word style, and don't feel bad because the first real written piece I did, rather than just sharing my YouTube videos on my Substack, was I was 4 or 5 beers in, and I'm like, I need to rant about the shit that's going on with Ukraine and dispel some of these. So, like, right in the first line, I'm like, disclaimer, I'm not proofreading this, and this is done from my phone while drinking beer and watching TV, and then just went through and listed off, bullet pointed all the things that need to be debunked on this Russian-Ukrainian, all the propaganda that's been out there that you keep hearing, just because I was so frustrated and it was a place to rant. So.
I love that one that I think it was today that you released it. The one with the Canadian guy.
Yep, that was today.
That was masterful. But our podcast is going to be hosted on Substack.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, we started posting our podcast. Taylor figured that out to post on there. But is your podcast at least going to have be on all the other platforms? Or
we're gonna put it on as many platforms as we can get away with. So
well, yeah, if you stick with the name Find Out, the podcast Find Out podcast, hopefully this helps bring a couple new viewers, or if people stuck around this long, then hopefully they'll tune into your guys' show when this releases next week. So
yeah,
wish you good luck, man.
Thanks to everybody who tuned in, and thanks to you guys for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for coming on kind of last minute and everything, and we just appreciate the work you've been doing, and I just want to make sure that more people are seeing your content because you're doing really good work. I do think that we need a lot more white rural conservative gun owners, or not conservative, white rural gun owners that look conservative, showing you that just because you live amongst these demographics doesn't mean you need to be complicit in treason.
50 years ago, all the people out in the country were FDR Democrats.
Absolutely. And it wasn't that. It was less long, or it was more recent than that here in Minnesota as well. We're turning red in the rural areas slowly, but we hung out a lot longer than a lot of other states did. And It's
We need to
sad
get
because it's
back to
happening in my lifetime.
yeah.
We'll get there.
We need to get back to the Henry Wallace days.
So I think that's what we're doing. At least that's what we're trying to do, and you're definitely becoming a big voice in that, and I appreciate the effort and the work you're putting in, and especially the behind the scenes effort and work to build community. It's really important. So thanks for coming on. Thanks for letting me be a little bit of a piece of your community here, and being a little bit of a piece of mine and ours. And I really do look forward to your podcast. And everybody, I really suggest you go follow Resistor Vic wherever you consume your media. And if you appreciate our podcast, we appreciate any support. Obviously, just listening or watching is the main reason we do it. We do have merch at offthewagon.com. If you just want to give us money, we have Venmo and Patreon and subscriptions on YouTube and all that stuff. If you follow through on the website there on the YouTube. So we appreciate all of that. We do this because you guys listen, and we appreciate the platform that you've given us. Thank you again, Vic, for joining us, and we will hopefully be talking to you again sometime in the near future.
Hope so. Thanks, guys.
Alrighty. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.